native Leandra Simone, author of Dancing on the Edge of Moonlight. Leandra, welcome and thank you for joining us this evening.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank
So, tell us a little bit about yourself, a little bit about your background.
Well, I am a writer. I have a minor in creative writing.
Okay.
This is my first novel. It was self-published through Amazon. I spent 2 years querying like publishers and agents to try and get it, like through a market.
Mhm.
And no one actually would pick it up. I had a lot of really nice declines, but basically they were like, no, we just don't really feel the project. I don't want to say that it's because it was like a Black novel.
Mhm.
I really kind of feel like maybe it wasn't like Black enough, like it wasn't like street lit. I really feel like street lit is hot right now,
Right.
chick lit and
Mhm.
all that stuff. And so it kind of veers off of that. It doesn't really fall into that, into that genre. And
Mhm.
so it's kind of like off. And so I thought that was kind of like what was going on. And so I went with Amazon. Somebody was like, oh, you could publish with Amazon. I was like, really? And I sent it to Amazon and they published it. And then I thought, oh, so and then I took it to bookstore and they said, well, we don't carry like self-published books. And
Mhm.
I'm, oh my God, I'm self-published.
Wow.
You realize that when you put it on Amazon, you're considered to be, like an independent publisher. So I was like, okay, so I'm just going to have to roll with that. And so literally I have been like accosting people on the street. I made like a bookmarker that had the cover and then it had the back of the book. And then I just chase people down wherever I see them, like groups of women. If they're like in a restaurant, I'm like, are you a book club? Is it a birthday party? Is
Okay.
it a social gathering? Or do you guys read? And here's my bookmarker. And I just kind of like,
Love it.
hand them out wherever I go. I have, they're always in my pocket, always in my purse. And I'm just catching people at will on the street, in restaurants, the park,
Mhm.
wherever they're probably like, oh my God, here she comes. But this is what I do.
Impressive, very impressive. So,
Thank you.
tell us, when did you discover that you had an interest in writing or that you had the gift of writing?
I have actually been writing like probably my entire life. Like when I was like younger, like grade school, I
Mhm.
wrote like little short, kind of like little short stories.
Mhm.
When I got in high school, I did more like poetry.
Oh,
And then when I got to college, I went back to like the short stories.
gotcha.
And so that's where I really got like the minor in creative writing because I was like, writing. Um, I really like, I have like tablets and tablets of like ideas, things that I wanted to write, like stories that I started that never really went anywhere.
Mhm.
Um, I have always had the desire to write, but I really felt like I didn't have my writer's voice.
Mhm.
Like I was like, I want to tell a story, but it just really wasn't coming out. With this particular story, it was not the story that I was actually working on. I was working on a historical piece. I was doing research, like historical research for the story that I thought, oh, this is the one that I'm really gonna like write up and tell. And then again, I saw this picture of this artist, this musician who was like always like really well put together, like infamously, whenever you see him in public, he is like flawless.
Right.
And this picture where he's like sitting in the grass barefoot. And I thought, oh my God, this is such a contrast
Mhm.
from this image of this flawless person to somebody barefoot in the grass, like really almost like a far from an after five shadow, probably like a 10 or 12 o'clock shadow,
Mhm.
like with up hair, and just like totally not looking like this other person. And I thought, God, wouldn't that be interesting if these are like two different, like one of them is actual the genius behind the person,
Right.
and the other one is just the alter ego. It's just the person that he creates to be his front man.
Mhm.
And so that's where the story really began. And it just like I came up with it and then it just went its own separate way. I was like, oh my God, look, I'm writing this because it was just like, oh my God. And it just flowed. So
how did you identify who the person was in the park that you actually saw? How did you make that connection that it was actually a famous musician?
oh, well, actually, it was a famous musician. It was actually a famous musician.
Right.
The person, yeah, I mean, the person does exist,
Okay.
or so I don't name him for a while there. Like I had people that were reading,
Mhm.
and to me, it's like, okay, well, I always identify who he is because that's who I identify when I wrote the story.
Okay.
But then people have been reading the story and they're telling me or they're talking to me about it, they don't necessarily identify the same person that I identified.
Right.
So I let everybody have their own fantasy. You know, like I was like, who do you think that looks like? And they'll be, oh, it's Rick James, or oh, it's, I mean, they're like naming all kinds of people. I'm like, oh, okay, well, you know what? I'm just gonna roll with that. I mean, if that's what your fantasy is, because it really is about what your fantasy is, you know. I mean, it's kind of like a fantasy kind of love story. It's because it's a romance, obviously. And so, yeah, so I let people roll with it. I think like if it ever like picked up momentum and I get a lot of tweets and people are talking to me about it, I would be like, well, send me a picture. Because that's what my cousin who sent me the one of Rick James, I said, well, what do you think he looks like? And she sent me like Rick James in a thong. And I was like, oh my God, okay. Look, okay then, all righty. So it would be fun to see like what everybody imagines that character to be.
Right.
You know, like which one is the quiet person, and then which is the alter ego. It would be fun to see that.
My interest is piqued. Interesting. So what's the overall theme of the book?
I think, excuse me, I think the overall theme of the book is that, okay, so it is a romance.
Okay.
But you know, it's not a romance in terms of like, you know, like flowers and rainbows, because really and truly love is not like that. I mean, it really is like complicated. Like you might find somebody, but he's got issues and you got issues and everybody's got issues. And then it's like how you work through that. So I think it's the same thing with these two people. You've got a person who is like, you know, famous with an alter ego that's doing all these things. And then you have a person who comes in contact with him that's kind of like intrigued, but like, I know the issues here and I really don't want to get involved, but she still gets sucked into it. And then once she does, it's like what they have to do to make their way through it, you know, and are they going to stay together? Aren't they going to stay together? Are they going to work it out? Does he want to work it out? Does she? I mean, so it's really like the struggle of what that relationship is going to be, or what they're going to make of it, you know, because it's not by any way, shape or form, just a standard kind of like, like flowers and little white picket fence. And, you know, it doesn't roll like that. But I think probably most relationships don't roll like that. Right. I think it's probably a realistic, you know, assessment of what people have to go through to make things work.
Dancing on the Edge of the Moonlight. It just sounds like a Lifetime series or a Lifetime movie.
I wish it were. Look, please, let's make that happen.
Out there. We putting that out there.
Please, let's put that out there. Let's throw it out there.
So you say you are self-published or independent publisher. What are some of the struggles and benefits of being self-published?
Well, I think probably the biggest benefit of being self-published is that I was able to actually get it published, you know, because I struggled for 2 years, you know, like just to get it to print.
Right.
And probably would still not be in print if I had not self-published it. It would probably still be, I would still be querying people. I would still be begging people. I would still be asking people, waiting for people to respond. I have a whole notebook of like, you know, when I send out things and when I got a response, and there's still some responses I'm still waiting for. And so the biggest thing was that it actually got published. I'm very excited to just have it out in print. It's on Kindle, you know, and then have it on print, like just to be able to go like, here's my book and here's my book and here's my book. Oh wait, here's my book. Wait, here's the book. It's like, yeah, it's a book. And so that is very exciting for me. You know, the downfall of it has been not having a publicist, you know, not having an agent, not having, you know, not having a publishing house behind me, because like, it would be wonderful to like go to my next book, like to start writing another book. Right. But for me, in my mind, I can't write another book because I'm still struggling to get this book out there, you know. And for me, it feels like it's probably going to take me the rest of my life, you know, to like, you know, to get people to read it. I mean, so it would be nice to write something else, but unless I get like a fellowship or something that's going to help me or promote me in a way of writing, I don't know that I could write something else, because it's taking all my time just to do this. And as I said, I try to do, I don't want to say I've been bad, but I'm a little like aggressive. So I've crashed, you know, like book fairs or book shows, you know, like bookstores, like when Prince's The Beautiful One came out, because he kind of has that dual personality kind of thing going on. I was like, well, you know what? I'm going to just go to the purple party. And I dressed all in purple, you know, and I went out there. And then, and somebody said, well, you know, it's a very small bookstore. You your dress is way too large for that. And I said, yeah, but I'm Leandra Simone, and I went out there with my purple dress. And then when I got there, I was like, you know what? This store is way too small for this dress. But then people were like, oh, well, take off your coat, take off your coat. So when I said, you know what? I'm Leandra Simone, and I'm dancing on the edge of moonlight, I took off my coat, and they were like, oh, you're the beautiful one. And I took pictures. I was just like, and looking up, and again, I was accosting people on the sidewalk with my bookmarker before I went in. I was accosting people in the store with my bookmarker. I mean, I was just like, okay. And then the owner of the bookstore actually introduced me and said, oh, here is this new artist, and here's her book, and she's here with us. And she was very gracious. And from that, actually, another book club picked me up, and I did like a podcast in Detroit, because that's currently, and then from there I did like a book show. So it's kind of like, like little baby steps,
right?
But again, they're like baby steps. They're like, okay, baby steps.
But it takes that passion and that confidence. I see that in you. You're gonna fight until you get it. So keep it up.
Oh, thank you.
Keep it up.
Thank you.
So where do you see yourself 2 to 3 years from now?
2 to 3 years. Okay, so I would love to have this book like bestseller list somewhere, or Oprah's list, but that won't happen because she's on Apple. I'm on Kindle, so that's not gonna.
It's possible.
I mean, all things are possible. All things are possible. I've had people ask me about like the sequel to this book, like when, so when is it going to come out? Look, and I'm always dropping like hints. Okay, well, like here's the scene, and here's the scene, and they're like, oh my God, and I'm like, yeah, that could happen, So it would be nice in 2 or 3 years from now. It would be nice to either have published either another book or publish the sequel to this book. It would be nice to like keep the writing going,
right?
So that's always something, that would be wonderful to do.
Okay. Well, I truly believe in putting it out in the atmosphere and speaking it into existence. So go ahead and start working on that second book. Okay.
Okay.
And those ideas, put it to paper. Put it to paper. Okay. What was the first book that truly tapped into your emotions?
My emotions. Well, look, this is probably going to be really bad. You know what? I was reading Valley of the Dolls when I was in high school. Yeah. And so when my mother saw it, she said, well, what's that book about? And I said, oh, it's about dolls. And so she wasn't, like really like a reader, and she didn't really look at it. And so I actually had a cousin tell my mother, oh, you know what she's reading? It's Valley of the Dolls. But the Valley of the Dolls, I was always a reader, like in grade school and, in middle school and high school. But by the time I got to high school, I was reading like all kinds of stuff like The Exorcist and Valley of the Dolls and Dune, The Hobbit. I mean, like just that whole sci-fi kind of like murder and mayhem kind of stuff. But I think Valley of the Dolls really brought together like a whole conglomerate of women who are like different characters. I mean, like since then, I have really enjoyed Octavia Butler. Because when I was reading sci-fi, it was predominantly like white writers. Then when I got Octavia Butler, I was like, oh, so Black people can write sci-fi too. So I was really into Octavia Butler. That was like, okay, Parable of the Sower, like, all right, like here we go, because this is where we're going. So I enjoyed her a lot.
Interesting. So how long did it take you to write the book?
This book?
Okay,
so so it's a very sad tale. I wrote this book. She goes, oh. I wrote the book probably in a year.
Okay.
What happened was I wrote it longhand in tablets. I did not write it on my computer. I wrote it like with a pencil and a piece of paper.
Okay.
I had multiple tablets. And then because it was on paper, every time I made a change, I had arrows that went back over here and like stars and numbers to go back to this page and things that were stapled together. And so it probably took me like another whole year to transcribe it after it was totally complete, like to sit down and to like actually do it. And I probably will probably still be working on it, except for I had a cousin that I went to high school with, and she had like a major heart attack and a stroke.
Oh.
And she was, like she survived the experience, but she was disabled from behind it. And then I was like, oh my God, I'm probably next. And so I told my son, I said, well, look, here's all my tablets and here's all my papers. If something happens to me, like make sure you go ahead and finish the book for me. It's already done. And he looked and he was like, you know what, Mom, if this something happens to you, it's going to be lost to prosperity. And I was like, okay, you know what? I'm just going to have to do this myself. And so then I started working like a mad person. And so then I got it transcribed and then I started submitting it to publishers. So it was it.
So speaking of your son, what feedback have you received from family and friends that have read your book?
Well, my son, well, I'm not going to say what he said. I know. He's like, you're a pervert. I was like, what? I mean, that is not, I know. So probably from one of my longtime friends, one of her best reviews was, she's like, it's buck wild. I was like, okay, I haven't heard that in a long time, but I like it a lot. From other people, it was just, I've had friends say, oh, well, we didn't know that's the kind of person that you were, or that's the kind of thing that you would write. And I'm like, well, I don't understand. And this is why my pseudo is like, you know what? When I write, I get to be like a whole nother person. I don't fit into your box. I get to be my own writer. I get to write how I want to write. And so I think that there's a disconnect there. But for the most part, people have really responded well. They have been like, oh, it's sensual, it's exciting, it's emotional, it's a roller coaster, because it's not really smooth. It kind of goes like up and down and all around, and just when you think like, okay, I think it's going to go good, it goes like to the left and then it goes to the right and then it goes, I mean, it has a very, it moves. And that's the part that I like, like when I'm reading it, I don't want to be like, okay, how many more pages till I get to the exciting part? No, it keeps going like that. Yeah, so.
Okay, awesome. I am ready to read it. At the child,
please.
I am. Kindle, you said it's on Kindle, right? Kindle?
I'm sorry?
You said it's on Kindle?
Yes, it's on Kindle, yes.
Download it tonight. As a child, had you always wanted to be a writer, or was there any other career that you were interested in going in?
As a child, I had lots of, well, first of all, I was an only child. Oh. So I got like a whole bunch of stuff that, because it was just me and my parents were busy. So I did like a lot of stuff. I mean, I was like building adobe huts in the backyard. I was, gardening. I took an art class, a charcoal anatomy class. And I mean, my parents were like, yeah, you can take the class if you want to take it. And at the time I was driving, so I just drove myself to the class. Well, I never told them that the anatomy class was like a nude class. I was like, oh my God, it was like nude people. I'm like, okay, well, I'm just going to roll with this because
only child.
I'm in the class. Right. Yeah. So I did quite a few things, but in terms of like being my career, I still don't actually, to me, have like a career. There are lots of things that I like to do. I'm a crafter, I'm a gardener, I'm a doll maker. I have lots of things, which is why I have multiple personalities. So a writer is just one of the things, or one of the people that I am, and so when I get the opportunity, especially here in Michigan, when it gets cold and I'm inside, I'm a writer. In the spring and the summer, I'm a gardener, I'm a painter, I'm a glass maker. And so I just live vicariously through like what the seasons or what my moods or feeling is.
Love the freedom. Okay, so we're going to play a little game just to get to know you a little better, okay? So I'm going to give you two choices. I'm going to give you two choices. You have 5 seconds to call out the first thing that comes to your mind, okay? 5 seconds. Are you ready?
Okay.
Cats or dogs?
Dogs.
Okay. Text messages or phone calls?
Phone calls.
Tea or coffee?
Coffee.
I know, right? Chocolate or vanilla?
Vanilla.
Okay. Comedy or horror?
Comedy.
Rap or R&B?
R&B.
Paper or plastic?
Paper.
Burgers or tacos?
Tacos.
Facebook or Twitter?
Facebook or what?
Twitter.
Twitter.
Okay. Online shopping or in person?
In person.
And lastly, back massage or foot massage?
Back massage.
Okay. So next, we're going to chop it up with our viewers. We're going to see if we have any questions that our viewers may have for you, okay?
Okay, sounds like a plan.
All righty. Let me check our text. While we're doing that, while we're waiting on questions to come in, can you tell the audience one more time where your book can be purchased or downloaded?
Okay, Dancing on the Edge of Moonlight is my book, and it can be purchased on Amazon. It's on Kindle, and it's also on paperback. So you can get it either or, however you prefer it. I like paperback, but that's just me.
Okay, so you guys go out there and get the book. I will be reading it starting tonight, and hopefully our book club, we can have an online discussion about this, and maybe we can invite you back to have an online discussion with our book club.
Most definitely. I would love it. Please.
Very intriguing. Very intriguing. So any questions? Okay, I have a question here. Do you have a game plan for writing? Did you have a game plan for writing the book, or was it free flowing?
It was free flowing. It was free flowing. Once I saw that picture, and I came up with the idea of it being like almost a bipolar kind of personality. It really flowed from there. I mean, basically, once the characters met, like the main character, the main female character had not met either one of them. And then in the first chapter, she meets both of them, like one as the alter ego, and then one is the quiet person behind. And so the first one she's not really impressed with. The second one she's intrigued by, but she still is like, this is kind of crazy. And so she, as I said, she kind of gets sucked into it. But the story really flowed from there. Like once they met, it was like, okay, it was like hell's bells to the wind. Like, okay, what's going to happen next? And it just rolled.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, George, for your question. Next, we have a question from Miss Beatrice Taylor. Are there any other novels that you're working on?
You know what? I would like to go back to my historical novel that I was actually working on previous to this one. Because it has, to me, I like it because it has like a lot of same kind of intrigue. It kind of moves fast. It is basically about a free Black woman, but during the slavery time, that gets kidnapped back into slavery.
Oh.
She has issues in terms of, well, she has issues, number one, because she's kidnapped, but then actually in terms of like just the logistics of it, because she's never been a slave, she can't do the stuff that they're trying to get her to do. Like she passes out in the cotton field, she sets the kitchen on fire. I mean, she just has a lot of issues because that's not what she's used to. She was educated, she grew up free, she was educated to be like a teacher. And so she just has issues with that. And so I would still like to go back to that story and complete that story eventually.
That sounds very interesting. It really does. Okay, any other questions? If not, we want to thank Miss Simone for joining us today. Thank you so much. Now, you say Leandra Simone is your pseudonym, right?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
You want to share with us who you really are, or are you going to leave that as a mystery?
You know what? When I'm here, when I'm talking about my book, I'm Leandra Simone. I mean,
love it.
That is who I am. That's who I like to be when I'm writing. I write children's books.
Really?
And under my children's books, yes, which is why they need to be so far apart. My children's books are under H.J. Stein. So, I just need to have different identities for the different things that I do, because I really don't think the parents of the children's books are going to appreciate it. If it was, no. So, so I just have to keep them apart. So, yes, this, and for my adult books and for my adult writing, I am Leandra Simone.
Miss Leandra Simone, we have thoroughly enjoyed speaking with you on this evening. Thank you for giving us your time on this evening. And again, go out and purchase Miss Leandra's book. It is called Dancing
on the Edge.
On the Edge of the Moonlight.
Dancing on the Edge of Moonlight.
To the Moonlight.
Thank you so much for me. Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're so welcome. Join us next week for author Tanya Edna Joyner. She's the author of How Not to Kill Kids Before They Turn 18. Thank you again for joining us. And remember, reading gives us something to go, somewhere to go when you have to stay where you are. Enjoy your quarantine.
Please. Thank you.
You have a good evening.
You too. Thank you. Thank you.